What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hope you guys can hear me. I'm gonna go ahead and actually, I'm not even gonna mess with the mic right now. I don't feel like moving it. I hope you guys can hear me pretty well. Anyways, kind of just that. So as you can see by the name of the title, Scarface Sequel movie. Now, there's not one coming out. There's not one being made. But I would like to discuss the Scarface Sequel movie that I would like to see. And there's two of them that you could go about doing this, because I know there's a talk about them wanting to remake the Scarface movie, the one with Al Pacino in it. They don't need to do that. That movie's a classic, and there's a reason why it works, why it's perfect. Because if you look up the documentary of it, behind the scenes and the stuff that went on during the making, they had a rough time doing it. And you got to remember, this was the late 70s to the early 80s, almost till the mid 80s, which would have been 85. And you got to remember, during the 80s, it was the drug era of shipping drugs from a country into the U.S., out of the U.S. to another country. Just tons of it. People dying constantly, gun fights in the streets. And Scarface captured that very well, how it was, just like Vice City, the game GTA Vice City back in the day, with that. So that's why the movie just works so great. There, you plus, if they were to make that now, I don't think it would be as impact as it was, because they wouldn't be having none of that trouble. So that's why I wouldn't be fond of seeing that remake, and I hope it doesn't go through. There hasn't been no talk of it really since, nothing really going into production. So maybe it didn't go through, which is a good thing, because you don't ruin something that don't need fix. You know what I'm saying? But there's two sequels that one of them we got from the video game Scarface: The World Is Yours, which was really supposed to be part two of the movie, and I will explain that. But the reason why we never really got it, or reason why we probably will never get that version even today's time, it wouldn't work. And I'm gonna fill that part in last a little bit. Let me get this part. So Scarface: The World Is Yours, the video game, was based off one of the comics, one of the books. I'm not sure if the books came before or after. It kind of looks a little bit in betweenish, even with the movie. I know there's some ones out there that go through Tony Montana's life in Cuba before getting to the U.S. and how he got the scar in the first place, the actual thing. I do know one of the books, and I seen it digitally when the game was out then. Even with the anniversary of the Scarface movie, when they showed it on TV so much, even on one of the President's Day's holidays and stuff. But and it takes place literally right after he falls in the pool, and he didn't die. Like he lived. He lived with that gunshot to the back. He lived, and he wakes up in the hospital. And the rest plays out like in the video game. Like, he gets his revenge. He works his way back up. I haven't played the game all the way so far. From what I know from one of the books, I think he gets back with his wife, or she tries to kill him. I know in the commercial in the game that she tries to kill him. However, I think they cut that part out, because I watched the game online for the movie, for the screen cuts and everything like that, and nothing throughout the game even showed her in it. Not as far as I can remember. I think they may have had a new chick that he did end up with. I don't know if the divorce was still there, or she was still considered a widow. I'm pretty sure she found out that he was alive anyways. So you had that, that would be great to see. However, it wouldn't work in today's modern time. It's 2018. We're now in the future, going more into it. It's not the 80s no more. Florida doesn't look anything the way it did. You know, a lot of the landscape, buildings, times, names, people have changed, came and went. Um, it wouldn't be that same vibe anymore. Al Pacino's no longer within his youth. Could they do? Could they? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's probably some parts of Florida that still look like the '80s. That would be probably in the opposite part of Florida. That wouldn't be in the same part like it was then. Could they do it? Yeah. You would have, get in the cars that would be needed. You would have a lot of money that would go into that, finding them, renting them, finding anybody that's willing to have a car seen in the movie, pay them. You would have to get the clothes from that time. You would have to get people to make them. And you would have to find a casting role who would look like Al Pacino in that age. The same height, everything. They could do it. As a matter of fact, WWE Studios casted the person to play Bruce Lee in Birth of the Dragon for the movie that came out. And they did a good job. Like, this guy literally looked like Bruce Lee. Like, wow. Like, you would think that's really him. That's how much he looked like the guy. But it just wouldn't work today. Not for today's modern time. It really wouldn't. It wouldn't work even for today's youth. They don't know. They weren't brought up in the times of drug dealers then. They know they're born and brought up in the times of being the druggie, the crack addict. And they wouldn't understand, and they would probably shit on it, because that's what it is. Today's era is, comic book movies, which I do enjoy depending on who it is. But now I know some people like, hell, they do the movies now that were from the 90s and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah. Yeah, they do. But you know what? It puts a lot of money into that, especially trying to find areas that still have the 90s and still looks like the 90s vibe, which is very rare. Just like the movie American Gangster, which I don't care for. I tried watching it twice. I fell asleep through it. I thought the movie was trash. But I do know behind the scenes, which I enjoyed more, even the documentary, better than the movie, and the actual story itself, better than the movie, is that they had to go to a whole nother part of Jersey that still looked like, what was it, the 70s or 60s or something like that, to shoot that, because it still looked like that back then, and it was, even though it wasn't the same spots. So yeah, you would have to go out and do all that. Just like if they wanted to make the Mafia movies based from Mafia games like Mafia 1, 2, and 3. Mafia 1 and 2 would be hard to do. Actually, I take that back. It wouldn't be hard to do, but it would be expensive to do because they still make cars like that till this day from the hot rod shops and stuff like that. The studios would have to pay them to make the cars or donate some or just rent the cars to use them, and it would cost more than it would to make. And they don't want to go through that trouble because, these two games take place in New York, and New York is changing so much that it wouldn't even look like those eras that those games are based in, which is what is it? 1930s, 1940s, right? Maybe the 1950s at that. Mafia 3 would be probably difficult too because I doubt Louisiana, especially in the bayous, even looked like they did back in the 70s. So, making the Scarface sequel, what we got from the game, it would be really expensive to do. And that's why I think that's why we'll never get to see that. Because it just wouldn't work for this era. It would be nice to see, and going back to what I said, if you look up the book, look up the comic, Tony Montana didn't die. It's out there. You got just it's out there on the internet. Just got to research it. I saw it for myself, and that's what was supposed to happen. But I can see why they didn't do that after part one, because they don't want to go through the same stuff that they went through making that. Um, even in the '90s, they probably would have had the same problems. But by then, Al Pacino was doing other things and aging, so there's that. I know some people say Carlito's Way 1 and 2 is like the remake to Scarface, but I seen both of them and I didn't see it. It's like a totally different film from that. But going back to what I said, yeah, that would be a great movie to see, is that one. But we got that in the video game form, which we'll just have to stay to, and I'm hoping that they re-release that for PS4 along with San Andreas and Vice City, because them are really great games. Um, there's another sequel they can do that will actually work. And there's a book out there. I haven't heard anything from it. No reviews. There's like a trailer clip though up on YouTube talking about the book. It's called Scarface, The Apple Don't Fall Far from the Tree. Now, it depends on where you want to put this at and how you want to make it. So, it's about the wife that left. Eventually, she found out she was pregnant, and Tony Montana had a son. If you wanted to make this in the movie format, then you could leave Tony Montana dead, right? And the kid, I would imagine in the kid years, he would have been born. Have him coming up in his kid years with his juvenile delinquent years from 85 to 95 at the most. As he's doing this, we're seeing that progress of him. There has to be some time skips, but don't do it so fast. Do it in a way where it feels right, to where we're seeing him evolve into his father a bit, and the mother has this breakdown. But before that, I think I would like to see how she took the news about him dying. Where did she go? How did she end up? Her struggle raising the child as a single mother, and she just tells him, "Look, you're like your father," or she doesn't tell him, but she sees it, and have him work in the way to where in his early adult years, like really early, like 19, 20 years old, right? Had the movie, like I said, take place in the early years from 85 to 95. From 95 to 2000, right? Because this needs to take place within the modern era of that modern time. To where, I think the guy's name was Ascarba. I think the guy that had Tony Montana killed. Because I remember later on in the movie talk about, yeah, he was expecting a child. Have it to where he's still alive, but he's retirement, but his seed took over the business. And Tony Montana's son, throughout the way, he runs into the lower street gang of that in the streets before working his way up. Like, he doesn't know who his father is still. He doesn't know who Escobar is. And have it to be where I don't want the movie rushed. I would recommend it probably in 2 parts at the most. Or make it just as long as the first one. To where somebody comes up to him and says, "Oh, that's your mother." Ooh, I didn't mean to hit my mic. Hopefully that didn't pick up like that all sound. Oh, that's your mother? Yeah. Tony Montana's your father, right? Then it's like what? Like what? You're joking? What? No. You mean from the movie Scarface? Have it be a time, because they're gonna make a movie anyways. It's gonna be that time. Like, no. let's whatever, And as he's thinking about it, I think what would be cool is have that Al Pacino presence, him as Tony Montana in a way, as in a, I don't want to say a spiritual state, a ghost state, but somewhere in a way where he contact his son somehow beyond the dead. Don't go all paranormal with it, no. Some way to where you feel that essence, or he visits him somehow, and maybe when he's sleeping or daydreaming, thinking about it. So he goes and have it to be where he's doing research, but have that essence there to where his father's guiding him through the research, but he doesn't know it, but he feels something there. And he's looking through these articles, he's digging stuff up much as he can. And figures out who his grandmother was, who did get killed in the game. Have him go to that house. Kind of ask if, a little bit of questions like, lived here, this woman, blah, blah, blah. And have it be usual answers like, this happened, or story from what was heard, right? Then have him go see his mother. Confronts her, and she gives him the story. She tells him things within certain details that stand out to her, and why she left and why she never told him, and she didn't want to be like him. And they have an argument. He walks out the door, and she just, lets it like, you're like your father. The apple don't fall far from the tree. Look at, you put me through. Don't come back. Things of that type of nature. And have him work his way up in the streets to where he gets to Escobar's son, to where he's working for him, right? And I say working for him to get to the point to where I'm going to take you out. I'm going to take out your father for killing my father. And just to add salt to the wound with this, the son lives in Tony Montana's house. Even though, no, the father lives in Tony Montana's house. And the goal is to take that house back. That empire of that house back. Right? So this is where we kind of go into Mafia 3 stuff. Let him get to the working point so much, the son starts getting jealous of this worker. Tony Montana's son. And he's like, man, it's time to cut him down to size. He's getting too big. And someone's like, well, why? He ain't do nothing wrong. He ain't been disloyal. He's a good worker. He still works for you. It's like, yeah, but now he's getting too big. He's a threat, blah, blah, blah. And Tony Montana's son just knows it's going to happen. But he's not there for it, right? But rather than them setting him up, he sets them up. Boom, 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 boom. You gotta remember, all this is just rough draft. I've been thinking about this for a while, too. He takes out Escobar's son. Right? Whatever the dialogue is, don't let it be something stupid or corny or shit. Let it be like, yeah, I used you to get to your father. The father don't hear about what happens right away. It makes the news that there was a fight or something that broke out at whatever place. But he doesn't know Tony Montana has a son. He doesn't know. Until when the son goes to the house with his little army, invades it, takes out some of Escobar's people here and there. He gets to the office, blows down the door. Escobar ain't gonna fight. He's old at this moment. He looks at the kid. He's like, you're your father's son. You're Tony Montana's son, the same blah, blah, blah. As soon as he's about to die, rather than Escobar seeing the son's face, and with technology today, you can just CGI fog or like kind of like a ghostly fade of the young Tony Montana's face on that point. And then Escobar just loses his damn mind and screaming. Then Tony Montana's son just kills him. Then Tony Montana's son just sits on the desk, listens to a little bit of the gunfire that's left, and thinking, and have him just walk out to the platform where his father got killed at. And he puts his hands on the railing. As he's looking down from the statue that's in front of him, says the world is yours. Because there's one in the front too, inside the lobby area. Because he knows he's going to take back the house. He's going to get control. He's going to take control of the turfs, everything like that, the crews, the money. And have the lines be like this. You're right, mother. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The world is mine. And then it just goes into that sound at the end of the first movie, that dun, 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 as it just pans out. And before it cuts to the final, for the credits, have it be like a year or something odd months later, to where he's sitting in his father's desk, the house, have it the way it was, in the same type of suit, just sitting there. Silence. No music, no talking, just complete silence. And then it cuts into the credits. To me, that would be the sequel that will work. There you go. That's the Scarface sequel I would like to see, rather than the remake. Like I said, the other one, it would be nice to see, but it just wouldn't work for today's time. So this is my video for today, a Scarface sequel. Peace, and I'm out.